Hi everyone, and welcome back to the last video of this week. It's going to be about videos. We already talked about different kinds of media like text and images, and now we want to focus on the last type of media that we have, and as I mentioned, it's going to be videos. You can enable Snap's video feature from the sensing category. We have a block that lets us access the webcam. The block is called set to so I can choose different features of Snap that I want to enable. Video capture is selected by default, and then I could toggle this hexagonal slot to the on thingy, and if I click the block now, it will enable the video feature. Take a look at the stage and see what happens. I click on the block and the webcam is enabled, and I can now see my face on the stage. The default transparency of the video is set to 50%. I can also change that by using the set video transparency blocks. So if I, for example, set the video transparency to 20, it's less transparent, but I can still look a bit through. If I set the video transparency to 0, it's not transparent at all. Also, if I set the video transparency to 100, I have a transparent video and can't see it anymore. Another block that might be interesting is the video motion block. I can also measure whether there's motion on the video. So let me turn on the video again. And now I can, for example, measure the video motion on the stage. Let me click that. And I'm trying not to move. So now you see the video motion on the stage, so on the full video is 0 if I'm not moving. If I'm moving a lot, you can see that the numbers change and I get a higher video motion on the stage. Now we can do stuff with that. So what we can do is create a magic mirror. For that, I'm going to stamp a part of the video on another sprite. So first we can create a costume for our sprite. For that, as you remember, you can go to the costume tab and you can draw a costume. Let's try a heart. And let's also fill it. That kind of looks okay. So now I have my object here and it's shaped like a heart, and I can move that around on the stage. What I can do next is I can stamp the current video snap, so a snapshot of my video on that sprite. So for that, the video motion block also has a snap option. And I can also select the sprite instead of the stage. As this is going to be the Magic Mirror project, let's call our sprite Magic Mirror. So now I can select the Magic Mirror and I can try to create a video snap on that. So as you can see here, the block reports an image that is shaped like the costume of my sprite. So it's the part of my face, my eyes and parts of my glasses that are on the costume of that respective sprite. I can now let my sprite wear that costume or that image. For that, I can grab one of the costumes block from the looks category. I go to looks and I select the switch to costume block. The switch to costume block has an input here, and I can select stuff, but I can also drop other blocks, reporters, into that input slot. So if I use that video snap block, and I just drop that into the input slot here, and I click the block now, I get a snapshot of the video on the sprite in the moment I click the block. Let's try it again with a smiley face maybe. So now I have my smiling face right in the middle of the heart. The thing is, I might want to have a live video on that sprite. How can I do that? That's actually interesting because that's how videos work. They are a sequence of images that are changing very fast on something. So I can create that video snap, the snapshot of my video on that costume all the time in very rapid succession by using a loop around that. So I can go to the control category and I can wrap a forever loop around my block. Now if I click that script, I'm taking a snapshot all the time. So now you can see that the video transparency on the background is the 50% that I originally had. I can also set that, for example, to 100. And then I only get the part of the video that is in the costume of my sprite, and the rest of the video is transparent. That's already pretty awesome, but it's not the maximum amount of magic that we can do here. So what our magic mirror can do as well is apply graphic effects on costumes. So I can use one of the graphic effects blocks because this is just an object and I can apply graphic effects on objects. I'm going to go to the looks category and grab one of the graphic effects blocks. In this case, we might not want to use the ghost effect, but we could, for example, try the color effect. If I set the color effect for that object on 30, it's going to apply that color effect on everything that is stamped or costumed onto that object. So now I'm way more yellow. That doesn't really look good, so maybe let's try another color, 50. Ooh, wow, now I have a really green face. So I can change the color of my object here, or the color effect on the costume of my object. Let's try another effect. So for example, I could also use the fisheye effect. The fisheye effect applies something like a fisheye camera onto the sprite. So if I set the fisheye effect to 100, I get a really strange looking shape now, and I also apply the effect so I can make my nose really big and my mouth really small. So everything that's in the center of the effect gets extended and everything that's at the outside of the effect gets smaller. So that's kind of cute. I could also reset the graphic effects. Therefore, I can use the clear graphic effects block that will reset all the graphic effects that I applied to my object. And I can try it again with another effect. So for example, we could try the whirl effect. The whirl effect, or maybe let's do something bigger, 200. The whirl effect creates a whirl again in the center of my object. So that's kind of fun. I can also try it with different shapes. So for example, if I don't want to use my heart anymore, but I rather want to have another object or another shape for my costume, I can, for example, also import a costume from the costumes library. Let's try Alonso. I can open the costumes library and then select one of the costumes that I have here. In this case, I want to have my face on Alonso. So I'm going to pick the Alonso costume and click Import. And now you can see that it's putting my face onto the Alonso. I still have the whirl effect on that. I can remove it again. And now I can put my eye on the actual Alonso shape. That's all pretty cool. Now I want to show you how you can even move that around using the video motion block. As I mentioned, we can not only do video snaps, but we can also measure motion on a video. So for example, I can measure the amount of motion that is currently happening on my magic mirror sprite. Let's try that. And also let me turn on the rest of the video again. So here's my Alonso sprite. If I do it like that, there's no motion on the sprite. So let's try that. I'll grab the video motion block again. Video motion on myself, in this case, measures the video motion on that object. So I click here and I'm trying not to move. So the video motion is pretty small. If I'm now trying to move my finger over the Alonso, you can see that it's measuring or that it's detecting video motion on the sprite. we can now use that to actually move the sprite around with our hands. For that, we can create a little script. So for example, we can let Alonso move around the stage depending on the amount of video motion that we have here. The script is going to work as follows. If the motion on our sprite is greater than a threshold that we define, so that it doesn't move or that it doesn't react on every little bit of motion, we're going to define a threshold. This is going to be something like 10. So only if the video motion on myself is greater than 10, we're going to do something. And the something we're going to do is we're going to let Alonso point into the direction of that motion, which we can also sense with the same block, and then we're going to let it move. So again, we want to have the video motion block, but this time we want to select the video direction. So with this block, I can measure the direction from which the motion is coming. And I can use that as an input to the point in direction block. So I want to point in the direction of the video. And now we can use that to make Alonso move around. I don't want to do it once, but I want to do it all the time. So again, I might need a forever loop for that. And now let's try it. You can see as I'm moving my head, I can also move Alonso. Let's try it again. Oops, I lost him. So one thing that we should take care of is we should make sure that Alonso does not leave the stage, because how am I going to get him back now? I can stop that script. I can use the go to x0, y0 block to make it go back to the center. Here I have it again. And now I can include an if on edge bounce block into my script. So every time after we move, we check whether we're already on the edge, then we want to bounce back, and if not, we can go on. So let's try it again. Now Alonso cannot leave the stage anymore, and I can move him around. One last thing that we want to do with our Alonso is we don't want him to be upside down. So we can change the direction in which he can turn or rotate. For that, you can set its rotation style here at the top of its sprite settings. Right now, it can rotate in every direction. If I only want him to turn left or right, I can select the other rotation type. So now, Alonso can only turn left or right, and I can move him around. We could even, because Snap is a parallel programming language and it can run multiple things at the same time, we can even turn on the other script while we're doing that. So now I can move Alonso around, and I can have the part of the video that is currently on him in Alonso. Here, for example, I created a project in which I combined Snap's video feature with the cloning abilities. I created a lot of clones, and now I am displaying the video on all of these clones to make them look like a shaded mirror. By the way, you can call all that mixed reality, because you're combining the actual reality of the video with a project that you run on your computer. Have fun experimenting with the video, and we'll see you next week.